Well, hello. This is Jimmy the Hammer, and what we have going on today is an interview with Tina Tang, a kettlebell instructor that I met during the RKC certification in January of this year. And she has a podcast and an Instagram page, and she works with postmenopausal women, and she has some great insights. And just going to talk with her for a while, and we're going to have a chat. We're going to see where she comes from and where she's going and what the objective of her podcast and her Instagram page is, and that she actually trains clients. And I don't, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't, but I haven't started yet. And Tina.
Hello.
So Tina Tang, we met in January this year with the
RKC.
RKC. It's good that you know what's going on and I don't. With Dan John, and it was your first time helping out with one too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've done kettlebells for a long time. It was my first time assisting at an RKC.
RKC. So that's
And
great
for
work.
everyone who does everyone know RKC stands for Russian Kettlebell Certification?
If they're a member of the channel, they should.
They already know.
They should, but that doesn't. I mean, all 89 of my subscribers. There's two more in the last week, so thanks, guys. And I pressure people on my trains, so I'm like, hey, it's like, I have a YouTube channel. Go on your phone right now and subscribe.
Subscribe.
Like
and subscribe,
now.
please.
Like and subscribe. But that's people like, how are you getting so many subscribers so quick? I like literally ask people on the train.
It's the best way.
It's like, I don't want to be here anymore. If you want me to leave, if you don't want me to take your ticket anymore, subscribe to my channel. Once I'm making enough money, I'll leave. We'll go with, how did you get into fitness? Now, I have looked at your Instagram page. What is your Instagram page?
The Instagram page is Iron Strong Fit, because my full website is Iron Strong Fitness. And actually, I'll give you a little backstory. The reason why it's called Iron Strong Fit is because prior to being in fitness, I was a jewelry designer, and I had stores in Manhattan for probably about 10 years. And then when I switched careers, which I'll tell you about how I got into fitness, I started designing jewelry that was for fitness. And the jewelry was called Iron Strong Jewelry. So I decided when I went on my own to form my own fitness business to just keep in line with that whole theme. So that's how it came to Iron Strong Fit, Iron Strong Fitness. So the jewelry was sterling silver.
Okay, all right.
But I thought
that's logical. That's
that when you're lifting and you're very proud of your accomplishments, it's usually lifting iron.
Yep. Right. Roger. Okay. So, and interesting, you came from someplace much different than making jewelry before that.
Yes. So my very first career coming out of college was working at Goldman Sachs as an equities trader. So I came from Wall Street before going into jewelry, becoming a jewelry designer. So it's been a very diverse career journey, going from finance into being an entrepreneur and designer, and then now being an entrepreneur in fitness.
Now, are you working in somebody else's studio, or do you go to people's houses?
Oh, that's a good question. I think in personal training, there's all different ways to work. A lot of us start out working at what we call a big box gym. So in New York, I started my career at a place called Equinox, which is, I guess, like a higher end. It's probably similar to Lifetime in terms of pricing and the quality of the gym inside. And from there is when I went solo. So I worked there for a few years and then decided to go on my own. So now what I do is I don't work for one person. I will teach a couple classes at a local fitness studio. I have my own classes that people sign up through me. I do personal training. And then I do something called personal programming, which is what a lot of trainers might do. Probably started out more in the pandemic, where I will create workouts for people who prefer to work out on their own or at home.
Excellent. Okay. Now, and what got you into fitness? So you went from making stupid amounts of money.
I don't know if it'd be stupid, but but it's probably more than some other types of jobs.
Right.
In terms of transitioning from jewelry to fitness, now only people of a certain age will remember it, will know this. Like, I don't think any Gen Z will, but I had stores for 10 years. And then in 2008 came the financial crisis. My stores were located in New York City. So post financial crisis, a lot of businesses took a hit, but especially retail, because I actually had a brick and mortar retail store. Actually, I had 3 stores. And during that time, 2008, and this kind of goes hand in hand with how people started changing the way they go shopping. So you had the financial crisis hit. So people are not shopping. And then around that same time, it was the rise of Amazon shopping. So between 2008 and 2010, more and more people stopped shopping in stores and shopping online. So anyone who's a store owner was all kind of getting a double whammy hit. I'll use examples in Manhattan. When you go to Soho, when you go to certain neighborhoods, there are stores there that are just almost like showrooms of online stores, like clothing stores. You know, you might go to the showroom in Manhattan to like try on stuff, but you would do most of your ordering online. And I think that's the trend that happened since 2008. And that's, you know, now here we are, 2024, and people shop heavily, heavily online.
I
So,
know.
oh, that's
I
right. I was
can't,
like, that's what's that?
I can't even imagine. It's like, what do I go buy in a store? I go to grocery store and
Yeah, but I think it depends on generation. Like at least for I think about when I was younger, my 20s, or if I was going to meet a friend, part of going shopping is like a social experience,
right.
right?
You go to the mall.
And that yes, like when we were kids, going to the mall, I still love a good mall.
Mhm.
It's just a place, you know, something to do. You're looking, there's visual stimulation. You walk and try stuff on because I guess now we're used to trying things on and shipping back, but it's really nice to go into a store, try things on, and know at that moment that something fits or that looks nice, but you don't have to go and ship it back. I digress.
You
I
mean
had
you don't like shipping things back to China?
yeah, there's just the whole trying things. I mean, I do it too. I buy stuff, but just buy it, try it on. You don't have you have the only instant gratification of maybe pressing to buy. But I think walking into your store to whatever it is you're looking for and to walk out with what you want,
Yeah.
there is something to that. And around that time when I had stores, also I was going through a divorce. And when I was going through divorce, I had moved out. And I think this is where I became my shift into fitness happened. So I would go to the gym, not having been a gym rat, more as I know people think, oh, divorce body, but I honestly think a lot of people are going to the gym. It's just somewhere to go, somewhere else to go, somewhere to occupy your mind. There's a little bit of social aspect also going to the gym. Like I would go and take group fitness classes. And that was my first time ever doing strength training in this like local gym across the street.
And
And
and people say it's good for you. So
and yeah, and
and
it's
I don't
good
have
for
it.
you. So
I don't have anything else to do. So I guess I'll go to the gym, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And since I didn't have strength training background, I would go and the classes were fun. And I'd always be asking teacher, like, well, how do you do this? And how do you do that? And I decided, oh, you know what I'll do is I'll just take a personal training course so that I can learn and not keep asking the coach about how to do things. Cause I also couldn't afford, it's weird. I could have done personal training, like hire someone to teach me, but I think that I was within my budget. So I decided to take an intensive course. I'm like, oh, I'll just use this as school so I can learn how to exercise myself. And it was from there that I ended up going into personal training because the school was taught by Equinox. And little did I know at that time, their school was really probably a feeder into
Yeah.
their gyms for
Hmm.
anyone who is interested. And they said, oh, if you're interested in applying for a job, just go to the closest one to you and start from there. And that's what I did. So I actually thought that I would do that as a side thing. I'm like, I'll just work here on the side as I continue my jewelry, even though it was a tough time in jewelry, but I ended up going full time at Equinox. So that's how the shift happened. And I think in life, often when people do career changes, it's never something that you intended on doing. And we also never leave a situation if we're comfortable,
Hmm.
or I can't say that you necessarily love something, but until you get to a position where you're forced to make the change is when we usually make these kind of transitions.
Yeah. It's like the pain level has to be enough
Yes.
where you're willing to change because you get
Yes.
even if you don't like it. It's like my job. It's like I don't like
Yes.
it, but it pays well enough, and so
Hmm.
I found a place where I'm relatively comfortable in not liking it.
Yes. It, unless something makes it painful, like you have a boss that's horrible that you're like, I just can't stand this, or you're starting to work a certain amount of hours where you're like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. Then that's when you make a change like that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking to change, but this has to be doing really well before
Yeah.
that would ever happen. So, and I don't really see that. I mean, I have an impetus to do it. Like some of the people on the channel know that I don't think you did. Maybe I told you. April last year, I got punched by a passenger. So yeah, it was nice because I said, Dan, can I talk to you? And he
Uh-huh.
said, yeah, here's my number. Give me a call. We'll chat.
Yeah.
So that's the great thing about Dan John. That's one of the reasons I pushed to go to the RKC last year when I did was I was
Yeah.
on the RKC site and I saw Dan John was doing one in Hoboken that weekend. I said, well, I guess I better get off my duff
Uh-huh.
and get ready and do it. And I just
Yeah.
barely was prepared enough to physically be able to mainly do the snatch test. That's the hard part.
Yeah. That's the hard part.
That's the hard part. So you're in fitness. So what kind of
Mhm.
fitness? So what were you doing? But you weren't really a gym person. You weren't really into
Yeah, I
fitness.
wasn't before. I wasn't into it. And then after I went through that personal training course and I thought, oh, I really like this. Let me give it a try as maybe something on the side with my jewelry because in retail, with the economy, people weren't really shopping. So I wasn't doing quite well in terms of jewelry sales. So I thought my supplement. But for anyone who does train, it's kind of hard to just do it part-time, especially if you're starting new in a career. So I started working at Equinox and, there's a certain amount of hours they demand there. And it's not a bad thing because they provide a lot of education for someone who's newer. And in becoming good at something, it's really about getting the reps in, right?
Yep.
You can't you won't be a good trainer if you only do a session here, a session there. You have to do a lot of sessions in order to be better and to be able to train better. Like with anything, the more you see and do, the better you are.
Yeah.
So I ended up going into fitness full time. And that's when at the same time I was designing jewelry related to fitness. So some of my pieces would be like a little kettlebell necklace. I would make it in sterling silver or a little weight plate. Those are my best selling pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And it because I wanted to wear something because I was very proud of passing the first kettlebell certification I did was a strong first.
Okay.
And passing it was a lot of work to pass
Mm-hmm.
the snatch test. So
Mm-hmm.
the business started because I was trying to buy a little kettlebell necklace and I was like, oh, I'm a jewelry designer. Why not just make my own? And that's
Mm-hmm.
how it started.
Oh, neat.
I didn't have a lot of history and past in strength training, but starting out as a trainer, I felt, I guess, almost like imposter syndrome because I wanted to have a lot more knowledge. And one of the areas now outside of training for that certification, you learn as you train to pass a test. I also wanted to learn how to use barbells because I felt like I'm going to generalize. More men know how to use barbells than women because also as teens, guys will probably lift together on, as an
Mm-hmm.
activity for them. And it's part of it is because they're teenagers and they want to look good for the opposite sex. But women are girls, teenage girls are not lifting weights together as an activity. So I didn't know how to lift with barbells. So I hired one of my colleagues to be my trainer in terms of powerlifting. And then I went for, there's another certification, Starting Strength, which is by Mark Ripito. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to understand how to use barbells and how to train other people with barbells.
Oh, neat.
And I think between the two of those, my emphasis has always been strength training. I like the way it makes me feel.
Yeah.
I like the accomplishment of it. And I
Yeah.
know for a lot of women, we're conditioned to do cardio or think that that's the better way. Like even before starting into it, I think when I was post college if I went to the gym, I would go on the treadmill for an hour. I mean, we don't know any better. We also haven't learned anything different. And, any of our friends are also taking yoga classes. It might be different, I think, today, but I'm Gen X and from all my past women, female friends, are not doing strength training classes together.
Okay. I'm going to ask a question
Hmm.
to which I know the answer.
Okay.
But since I am male and you are female, this is not the question of which I know the answer. How much can you shoulder press? Kettlebell.
Oh
Kettlebell.
God, I honestly think that's my weakest
Right. Okay. How much can you squat?
lift with the barbell.
Yes.
I think my one rep max is probably 190,
All right. Deadlift.
250.
Okay.
Shoulder
But
press, like for me, a 16 kilo is, and I know it's like definitely
that's
weaker
okay.
than
That's
some of them,
okay. That's okay.
but I can do pull-ups. I'm a puller, not a pusher.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I can do 10 pull-ups.
Okay. So this is the question of which I know the answer, but I want
Okay.
a 53-year-old female to say,
Uh-huh.
Is it is it possible? Now, how do I phrase it? Is it
You want to phrase it just the way it
well,
won't
well,
be,
it's like
is it because you're afraid it
this
won't
what
sound PC?
no, no, because I want this to be clippable.
Okay.
Is it possible for a woman easily to look like a man by picking up weights?
Oh, hell no. First of all, I think the percentage of testosterone that we have to
Exactly.
men is
Yeah.
like, it's less than, is it less than 1% of what you guys have? So, and then you need testosterone in order to build muscle like that.
Not
That's why people dope
yeah.
use testosterone in bodybuilding because it helps build muscle or
Mhm.
like quickens recovery time. So
Yeah.
for a woman to bulk up, it's very hard.
It's very
It's hard
hard.
enough for a man, and you need to
And
take drugs.
you would have to take steroids and you would have to work out a lot.
Yes.
A lot.
Oh, I think
But
realize like when I think a lot of women don't realize like when they even when they look at a CrossFit athlete, a female athlete who's got so much muscle on her, I don't think people realize someone who's a CrossFit fit athlete, they work out 2 to 3 hours a day,
mm,
right? They're not just like a 20-minute workout. They're working out a lot to build muscle. It takes a lot to
but
look like that.
would you say there's still kind of the thought with women? I think it's getting better, but the thought with
Yeah.
women that if you looking at a weight is okay, but if a woman actually touches the weight that's more than the pink dumbbells, she's immediately going to become a man.
Even doctors sometimes think that. About 3 years ago, when I was getting my colonoscopy, the gastroenterologist, I don't know how to pronounce it properly.
Gastroenterologist. Yeah.
She was probably a female my age, and then she was just asking me what I do, and then she said, "Oh, I never do that because I don't want to bulk up. So she like does Pilates and bar." This was a doctor that said that. So I think there is a conception about that women will just immediately bulk up, but
A lot
it's
of
hard enough for
work.
a man to bulk up. I don't
Yeah.
know how a woman could bulk up. It's a dream for a man to be able to bulk up that fast.
Here's a fascinating thing. I was listening to Huberman and Peter Attia,
Hmm.
and he said actually women have, if they're measured the same way,
Hmm.
women have more testosterone in their bodies than they do estrogen.
Oh, really?
If they're measured the same way, they're not.
Hmm. Uh-huh.
But the amount of testosterone they have compared to a man obviously is less. But
Yeah.
compared to their estrogen, they actually have more testosterone in their body than they do estrogen, which is, and Huberman was like, really? He's like, yeah, they just don't measure it the same way. So it's important for, it's like men have estrogen and men have
Uh-huh.
testosterone, but it's
Yeah.
important for both.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely.
but it would be really neat if we can like, it's like I follow this one girl on Instagram. She's the one that is encouraging me. I mean, she's not doing it specifically, but she has lost a lot of weight. She looks awesome. And
Hmm.
she can deadlift as much as I can.
Wow.
But she's where she does about 275, 285 deadlift. She squats pretty. I don't back squat, but I have issues with ankle mobility, so I have to use
Oh,
lifts,
that.
something.
Yeah.
I would actually, having watched some of your stuff, I would have loved to have gone to that barbell seminar you all did.
Oh,
But
yeah.
as I commented, you have one small problem with this. It's in Manhattan. I ain't going there.
And not for a one day, not for
No,
a 2 hour workshop.
as a Bostonian, and I got to get there. I got to park. My car is probably going to be towed. I'm going to cost. I'm going to probably have to pay $5,000 to park it. So yeah, nope, nope, no, no. It's Jersey City. Jersey City was nice, but then again, I didn't have to move
Yeah.
my car, and
Yeah.
Hoboken was cool. Those neither one of those were bad, but it's like Manhattan. I just can't even imagine living there. It's like there
In
is a
Manhattan. Yeah.
just can't it? I think I imagine it for about a minute and then like, nope, I live in the country. If I could turn the camera around, you could see I live in the country. And I only go to Boston because I'm on a train and I have to go there because that's where I work. And I'm only there for
Hmm.
I'm there for 45 minutes and then I leave.
And then you turn around.
Yep. Yep. I don't like driving in Boston either, but that's neither here nor there. So, and why'd you get into kettlebells?
Like, why don't I just stick with them? You know what? I think it's also influenced by who's around you. So, as a trainer at Equinox, the trainers around me were all about kettlebells.
Which I find
So
fascinating.
yeah, I think most people who are in the biz, who train at a gym like that, it would be barbells and kettlebells. I think it gives you more. I'll tell you why a trainer would care about that. The more tools you have in your toolbox
Yeah.
in terms of what you can use, the better, because it's easier also to adapt to what's available.
Hmm.
If you know how to use a kettlebell versus because dumbbells are more self-explanatory. And same thing if you're able to use a barbell. Then if I'm training someone in their apartment gym, whatever, if they might have some stuff and not the other. So the more you know, the better it is. And I always say to people, because sometimes all of us talking about kettlebells, people are like, is it better? And I know some people or some schools have thought like it is better. And I don't think it is better.
No,
I think it's just
different.
different ways to use things. Yeah. And we just have preferences.
I,
We all
th-
have preferences.
I think it's more versatile,
Yeah. And that
but
you can do strength and power. Yes.
what I
There's not,
would say is, I mean, I still use my 12K kettlebell all the time. There's things you can do with a kettlebell with a lighter weight that when you have really light weights with dumbbells and stuff like that, it's like
Mhm.
you get to a certain point and it's not necessarily beneficial. I think you can outgrow if you just buy two dumbbells.
Yes. Yeah.
You will outgrow those far quicker than if you just get a single kettlebell. Single kettlebell can last
Yes.
for years or
Absolutely agree.
forever.
I think the
Forever.
only barrier, depending on where you are, how you train,
Mhm.
is that the kettlebell just takes more skill learning. So
Yes.
it's more
Right.
versatile, but
Yeah.
you'd either have to have someone teach you
Yep.
or have some place, where you can learn. I think it's probably hard to learn just remote. I mean, just by
Yes.
watching video, you'd think it's helpful to have either, even if it's a small group environment, but having an instructor
Yep.
who you can learn from is very
Absolutely.
helpful, who can watch you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Because when I had been into weightlifting and, have somewhere in this house, I am not sure where it is because we've moved. I have the, and I noticed it was at the gym. He had a copy of it at the gym where we did the RKC in January of Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding.
Yeah, I
So
think it was in the bathroom. I
yeah,
saw
it was in
it.
the bathroom. I took a picture of it actually. And I have a copy of that somewhere in this house. I don't know where it is, but I have a copy of it. But that's what I did when I was in my 20s. Like you
hmm
said, I was with my friends, we
hmm
lifted weights. I'm
Yeah,
sure I did it suboptimally. No,
that's
no,
yeah,
because
that's
it's normal because
normal.
you don't know, and it was the 80s. So
Yeah, exactly.
the training methodology is totally, it's like, oh yeah, you train like Arnold, you look like Arnold. Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah,
Of
yeah.
course, that's what will happen. So, and I started out with that, and then I had gained weight through my 20s and 30s and got up to 270, and then I lost the weight, and I did kind of a body for life type workout, which was weightlifting, and I've had several
Mhm.
injuries and had to deal with things like that, and so I'd kind of gotten that workout while it was easy to do, it had gotten stale. It was a dumbbell workout. It had gotten kind of
Yeah,
stale, but it was something that I would always go to because it was easy.
yeah.
And I would try something else, and I'm like, yeah, I'll just do this. But it was getting kind of stale, and I'd had a couple of injuries. And so when I saw kettlebells, I saw Enter the Kettlebell but on YouTube with Pavel. And I looked at that and I said, I need a trainer. Otherwise, this is going to your
Yeah.
point, this is going to rip me in half. I think the older you get, you really should have at least have somebody watching you to say,
Yes. Uh, mhm.
because you'll groove in bad movement patterns. One swing is not going to hurt you, probably. A 12K swing probably is never going to hurt you. One. The problem is somebody's going to do 17,000 of those, and at about 8,392, you're going to mess something up. And then
Yeah.
you've grooved it in, and it's hard. It's hard to get that out. I do really want to touch on this as one of your focuses is post-menopausal women. And so you have an interesting quote on your Instagram page is you don't want other women to be surprised like you were.
Oh, yeah. So I think any woman in her late 40s, early 50s, so when you're going through perimenopause. So I think we never even think about we're going through it because our moms never talk about it. And I don't think, I mean, anybody I've talked to, I think it's very common because in previous generations, women don't talk about that stuff. And I think they don't talk about it in public because it's not because they don't want to talk about it. They've been taught not to talk about it because it's supposed to be private stuff. But,
Yeah.
you know, we all go through physical changes in our 40s, men and women differently. But for women, it has to do with the shift in hormones that goes reproductive to non reproductive years. But everyone thinks of it as, oh, it just means you can't have babies. But the beauty of our human body is that we use hormones not just for reproduction. The same two hormones affect everything. So those two hormones affect your bone density, it affects your hair. That's why women get thinning hair as they get older. It affects your skin elasticity. It affects your joints. So I think women start to experience stuff in their late 40s and you don't really realize it has to do with changing hormones. And because my mom never talked about what happened with her, stuff was happening to me. Like I stopped being able to sleep, which is actually a pretty common thing for at this age, getting insomnia. But when I went to the doctor, my regular doctor, they didn't think about it because I think the education on it is just because they went to med school. And from what I know from having gone through this, med school doesn't cover the topic of menopause very deeply, maybe about an hour. So when I went to even my gynecologist, seriously, that people have to get outside education on it. My gynecologist is like, oh, you're just gonna have to deal with it. This is horrible. So then I remember asking my mom around the time because I was like, I don't understand what's going on. I'm trying to think what other things that was happening. Yeah, I didn't know that was perimenopause until the insomnia was so bad and I was trying to figure out what was going on. I asked my mom, I was like, did you go through menopause? She's like, yeah. She pulled out a calendar. She's like, I was 50. I'm like, okay, that's how old I am now. And how come she never told me about this stuff? So I try to talk about a lot of these things on my social because even now, like here, it's being talked about more online. There's movie stars very public about it, like Oprah or even Michelle Obama has been talking about how she went on hormone therapy. But prior to that, nobody really was. But even with these famous people talking about more, I think women are still in the dark. I can think about when I post about someone will contact me like, oh, I've been starting to feel like XYZ. I didn't realize that's what it is. Yes, that's why I talk about it so that other people can feel informed and also know that you want to have a doctor who's actually, sounds weird, menopause certified, but there is a governing body, the North American Menopause Society, who provides a rigorous education to doctors to pass the test for them. I know because I talk to doctors who are menopause certified, they're like, oh no, the test's not easy. You have to actually study for it. And there are tons of doctors that are on their directory that have passed. That's the kind of doctor you want because they're going to be able to help you through this time.
So that's where you're coming from. I kind of want to drill down into that a little bit. Do you have, say, 3 tips? Now, one thing I would tend to think that all of those things you were talking about, I'm thinking, weight training would actually probably fix a lot of those or help. And most women are like, yeah, but I don't want to get bulky.
The number one thing I say to everyone is a trainer might be important is you need to have the right doctor because I have had doctors that literally shut me down and other women have expressed to me, they'll say to their doctor, I noticed that I'm feeling my energy level. You're like, I've changed nothing. I'm gaining weight. I've changed nothing. I went from a high energy person to this low energy person. What the hell is going on? And the doctor will be like, oh, everything shows that you're fine. Or so I've had women in their early 40s say, like, I've noticed certain things like my periods are coming very irregularly. I've been getting night sweats. And the doctor's like, you're too young to be in perimenopause. But these are the 2 signs that are your body's actually showing you, 2 things that are showing that you are. So the number one thing I always say is you need to go to that North America. So it's called menopause.org, the website, and find a doctor in your zip code that takes your insurance that is certified to talk to you about these kind of things because you're going to have that doctor from now on. Every other gynecologist can help you with babies, but you want someone who knows midlife and beyond health. So that's number one. Number 2, what you're saying about strength training, yes, because one of the big things, the 2 ways that our bodies are compromised post-menopause is our bone density. And the fact that I always cite is 60% of women over 50, you either have osteoporosis or low bone density. Either way, low bone density leads to osteoporosis. And diet, sure, that's going to be helpful, but you need to strength train. Actually, 2 things, strength train and a little bit of plyometrics. Because plyometrics, when you bounce, it's a lot more impact, like body to ground than any heavy strength training can do. You need the combo of both kind of things.
Yeah, it was interesting. What class of human have the highest bone density?
Oh, I don't know.
Gymnasts.
Oh,
because
of
the impact,
the ground forces. Yes.
Yes, because of the
That's
impact.
so interesting. Okay, that makes total sense.
Dr. John Jaquish, and he created a machine that because his mother had osteoporosis, and so it puts the essentially like 9 times body weight onto the skeletal structure to build bone density. Your bones will take that much, but you're trying to give it a shot. That's an interesting point because it kind of goes
training
along.
your bones. Yeah, you're training your bones to be able to take the impact because everything our body does is to survive. So whatever you challenge it with is what it rises to the occasion to accomplish.
Just noticed a couple of your Instagram reels about you doing the jumping up on things. And I'm like,
oh yeah, the plyometrics. Yeah, I've been adding that
like
into my training over the past year. Part of it is because I actually have low bone density. It's very common for Asian women. And so here's one way where I think a lot of times people think being lighter and skinnier is better. So someone who's heavier will have better bone density than someone who's very slender. And that's why Asian women in general, are a little smaller build. Statistically, 20% of them will have osteoporosis. And this is exactly because, you're slighter. You got less impact on your body against gravity than someone who might be a little heavier. You said 3 tips. I was like, find a doctor, strength train, little plyometrics. I don't know if I have tip number 3. I think, but
plyometrics, you could say, is tip 3. I suppose we could move that into being, because that's a good tip, because I was like, but ladies, lift heavy things.
And then that's a very good point, because sometimes I think the idea or hearing lift heavy things, someone will be like, well, how do I do that? What's heavy? And I think everyone needs to remember it's relative to you. So remember, you're normally only picking up 5-pound weights. Heavy for you can be 10, and that's great. Yep. So it's just heavier. It's something that's challenging you.
Mark Wildman just posted a really great video about people who have overweight, deconditioned. He set a timer for 1 minute, walk out of your house for 1 minute. Yeah. It doesn't matter how long it takes you to get back. Set the timer, walk for 1 minute, stop, come back.
You're done. I love that. Yeah.
Next day, 1 minute and 15 seconds. Yeah. Walk out. You can walk a different direction. It doesn't matter. That may be all you can do.
Yep.
And gradually build that up and get to a point where it's 5 minutes. And then the next week, you can dial it down a little bit. And then you wave it up and down, because it may get, or when it gets to be, oh man, this is too much, dial it back.
Yeah.
A little bit, and then gradually build back up again. So, I mean, it can be as little, but all I'm doing is jumping up an inch. Well, what did you do yesterday? Nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, if you
there's a study that if you Google it, about 20 jumps, and they showed that even doing 20 little hop a day, how much it impacted bone density.
Interesting.
You don't have to be jumping on a box, but having that regular, just 20 little hop, and then that's a perfect example of just like little things that you could do in everyday life.
And Dan John said this at the CERT, which is raise the floor. Don't worry about, oh man, I can't reach the top of the mountain. That's okay. Is your floor 1 foot higher?
Yeah.
Yes. You're better.
Yeah.
And I think a great quote is, it doesn't get easier, you get better.
Yes. That's actually a great quote. That makes sense.